On the morning of August 22nd, 1191, the Crusader army, led by the formidable Richard the Lionheart of England, began its cautious march south from the fortified coastal city of Acre. Having recently captured Acre in a major victory earlier that summer, Richard now set his sights on the port city of Jaffa. He knew full well that control of Jaffa was essential if he ever hoped to launch a successful campaign toward Jerusalem. However, his path would be anything but easy. The Muslims of the Ayyubid Sultanate, commanded by the brilliant and determined Saladin, had already recognized Jaffa's strategic value. In anticipation of a Crusader advance, they had destroyed its fortifications the previous summer in 1190, hoping to render the city unusable to their Christian enemies. Richard's army for this campaign was impressive. Some 2,000 mounted knights and an estimated 10,000 to 12,000 men at arms, spearmen, archers, and crossbowmen. Knowing Saladin would try to block his route to Jaffa, Richard took no chances. Saladin, ever vigilant, quickly mobilized his forces to confront the Crusader advance. His goal was clear: to stop the Christian army before it could threaten Jerusalem again. The Crusaders' progress was slow and deliberate, averaging just 5 to 6 kilometers per day. But this was no accident. Richard understood the dangers of marching in the sweltering Middle Eastern heat, especially while heavily armored. Heat exhaustion and dehydration could devastate an army as surely as any sword. Memories of the catastrophic defeat at the Battle of Hattin just 4 years earlier remained fresh in Crusader minds. Richard was determined not to repeat that disaster. By early September, Saladin realized his skirmishing tactics had failed to halt the Crusaders. His army, now numbering around 25,000, was diverse and formidable. His front lines were made up of Bedouin and Sudanese archers, Turkish horse archers, and various light skirmishers. Behind them stood regiments of heavy cavalry, Kurdish Mamluks, and elite warriors from Egypt, Syria, and Mesopotamia. The army was divided into 3 parts: left, right, and center, with Saladin himself directing the battle from beneath his royal banners, flanked by his bodyguards and the rhythmic pounding of kettle drummers. September 7th, as the Crusaders broke camp, they spotted enemy scouts in every direction, a clear sign that Saladin's full force was near. They had entered one of Palestine's rare wooded regions, the forest of Arsuf, which stretched parallel to the coastline for more than 12 miles. The dense woodland provided Saladin with perfect cover for a surprise assault. As the Muslim forces emerged from the tree line, the Crusaders swiftly formed into a tight defensive column with their backs to the sea. Infantry took up the front ranks, with crossbowmen and archers just behind. The mounted knights and the baggage train held the rear. Saladin's men opened the battle with a storm of arrows, hoping to lure the Crusaders into a reckless charge and break their formation. Many of his horse archers dismounted to fire more accurately, raining arrows down with deadly precision. As casualties mounted, pressure grew among the Crusaders, particularly at the rear where the Knights Hospitaller held the line. Richard, knowing Saladin's tactic was to draw them out, sternly refused to let his cavalry charge. But tensions rose. The barrage of arrows proved too much. Suddenly, without orders, a group of Hospitaller Knights broke formation and charged the Muslim ranks. Their commander, Master Garnier, seeing their momentum, formally gave the order to attack. In moments, nearby Crusader units joined the charge. A roar swept across the battlefield as steel clashed and banners surged forward. It remains unclear what exactly triggered the initial break in formation, but the sight of comrades falling one after another under relentless arrow fire likely pushed the knights past their limit. The Christian cavalry swept through Saladin's front lines with brutal force. The disciplined but enraged Crusaders overwhelmed many of the Muslim troops, routing large segments of Saladin's army. Saladin himself remains surrounded by his elite Mamluk bodyguards, attempting to hold the center. But even they cannot withstand the sudden wave of aggression. The Crusaders encircled the heart of the Ayyubid force. Seeing his lines collapse and his army disorganized, Saladin wisely ordered a withdrawal. His remaining troops retreated through the forested hills of Arsuf, shielding their battered ranks from further slaughter. Exhausted but victorious, Richard did not pursue. His soldiers had fought bravely, but the heat and the hours of combat had drained them completely. Still, it was a decisive moment. Richard had broken Saladin's line, preserved his army's cohesion, and secured the road to Jaffa. The Battle of Arsuf would go down in history as a critical Crusader victory, showcasing Richard's brilliance as both a military commander and a logistical strategist.